These are for a series of stories that are based on my experiences going through the coronavirus pandemic and are told through a season or milestone during this nearly 2-year time. I won't give away what I'll have to say, but if you went through the coronavirus pandemic like I did, then you'll know what I'll be mentioning through these stories through 2020. Stories of change, unexpected turns, and most importantly, reflection. It is currently March 1st of 2025 at the time of writing. This means that in a few weeks, it'll be the 5th anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic quarantine. The year was 2020. Like many of you watching, I was younger than I am now, and just like now, I was headed for a milestone. I was 12 years old, and at the time I was attending a small middle school in Newark, California called Newark Junior High. I had just moved there, and I was getting to know a lot of other classmates who I would eventually become friends with. I had an art class, the first time I ever had something like that in my life, and the first time I ever had multiple classes in a day. Not bad for a 7th grader. The environment was so new and fresh that it didn't matter that things were going to be harder academically. I was actually having the time of my life. Then the new decade came, and nobody knew what would happen next. A new president, the 49ers losing in the Super Bowl, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a world that I never experienced before. It was like you were living an incredible life that every incoming teen wants to experience, and it was just taken away from you. Everything was turned upside down. And since enough time has passed, I thought it was time we reflect. This is my experience during COVID-19. Disclaimer. This here probably won't be the best story told about living through COVID. Many people, including you, have had different experiences involving the COVID pandemic. Everybody has a different story, whether they were an essential worker or an office worker who could work from anywhere, or a teacher or professor or a news reporter who had to keep the job going from their living room or kitchen. This is mine, and it's based on what I can remember and how I saw everything that was going on. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area during this time, so there are going to be a few things that were added into the situation based on where I lived. But without further ado, let's go back to the start. January 15th, 2020 was the day the first person came to the United States, just a couple months after the virus was discovered in China. I remember the time when it was slowly beginning. Let's fast forward to early February, as the virus began to grow. The news began reporting it as if it were some sort of disease come to every side of the world and wipe out humanity as we know it. Of course, that's not what happened, but the public, scientists, and the government didn't know anything about it. And it was true. All we knew was that this thing was from China, because it had just arrived and there were only a few cases in America. But then as time passed, things began to explode around us, and we eventually became the hardest to be hit by the virus. Throughout the month of February, it didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. At least, that's what I hoped would have happened. I didn't want anything bad to happen. Nothing major happened yet. I mean, there were only some people who were wearing masks, but there wasn't a major quarantine that was set in place yet. I was still going to school, and every morning I woke up to the news. The numbers were growing, warnings and instructions were being passed, and the virus wasn't going to go away anytime soon. In March, we were finally told to take action by staying home and by shutting down the country. I was stuck in a bedroom, for the most part with nothing to do. We still had school, but the experience would be different. We had to use computers which required high-speed access to the internet. I remember this being an issue because everybody was trying their very best to get Wi-Fi so they could work from home. More TV and radio stations were airing commercials for internet access, and everybody was preparing for the worst. At the time, I lived in 2 houses. At my mom's house, we tried to prepare as fast as we could. We got toilet paper from a Walmart that was almost empty, which of course made me scared. Going through a pandemic was something new to me. When you had people warning you that you could get a virus that's unknown to the public and scientists and possibly die from it, it affected the way I saw going outside. Also, I didn't know I was wearing a mask improperly when I went to the Walmart the first time since the beginning of the quarantine. So that's something that happened. But by the time we stopped panic buying and we got the internet access going, we're finally ready to rot in our homes for the next year and a half.